Hello guys, welcome back. Welcome back to my channel. As you can see from the picture in the background, we're gonna be starting part 3 of What If Naruto was betrayed and became death, or The One Man Apocalypse by SinbadThe3rd on fanfiction.net. Now, you guys, I saw the last video. You guys were giving me new what ifs to do. Now, there's one what if I won't be doing too soon. I'm not saying I'm not gonna do it, but I won't be doing it too soon, and that's what if Naruto with greed. Someone requested me that, and I never really watched too much of Full Metal Alchemist. I never watched that anime too much. Only watched like the first episode of Full Metal Alchemist OG. So yeah, I can't really do that right now. I gotta watch Brotherhood first, and then I gotta do that. So sorry for not being able to do it right now. But anyways, I also have another announcement. Like I said in the last video, if you have any what if you want to recommend, put it down in the comments below. Anyways, let's get into this. Chapter 4: Settling the Score. Konoha was in a state of severe panic. But then again, what was one to expect when the demon that had been sealed away 13 years prior returns in all of its demonic rage? The people had thought it was gone forever. But seeing it with their own eyes sounded the alarm to every shinobi that they were being attacked. It caused outright panic among the village populace. They had long thought the bane of their village's existence had been removed with the death of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and could move on with the demon suffering in hell. It was only fair in their eyes. The Kyuubi had taken so much from them, and they had deserved something back in return for the trouble the fox caused them 13 years ago. That was what they believed. The Sandime never told them otherwise. So not hearing anything to contradict what they had believed, the village sought to hurt the boy holding the fox, and finally get their revenge by killing the brat, only for the fox to return alive and far more pissed than he was the first time. "You dare unleash that demon on your home?" shouted Tsunade as she was still shocked from all that had transpired within the last 20 minutes. They had just been about to wed Hinata to Sasuke when out of literally nowhere, Naruto showed up and wrecked it before taking the body of Hinata away through somewhere through a portal. Now he had just summoned the bane of their village to destroy, as he said, 1/3 of the village. "I have unleashed the Kyuubi on a corrupt village, filled with those whose very souls have been tainted black from greed and pride," said Naruto as he saw the Kyuubi smashing the buildings in the immediate area. While the Kyuubi had so much more power than that at his disposal, Naruto had been cleared to destroy only 1/3 of the village, so he couldn't use his full power or he would destroy more than that. "This is not my home. It never was." "You ungrateful brat." "Ungrateful?" asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. "Ungrateful for what exactly? Being beaten within an inch of my life since I took my first steps? My first memory being one of pain since I had a knife stuck into me by a grown man who claimed I had destroyed his home and killed his family." "We allowed you to live as long as you did," shouted Tsunade, "since we could have killed you at any time. The seal placed on you would have killed the Kyuubi so that it wouldn't return. You are ungrateful for the life we allowed you to live in the first place. I would have honestly preferred death to what I was forced to go through." Naruto then felt Sasuke was charging up another Chidori to attack him from behind and charge forward to strike him while his back was turned. Naruto didn't even look at him, as his purple spirit hand emerged from him and slammed Sasuke into the ground hard. "Unhand me, loser!" shouted Sasuke in rage, since he was pissed that Naruto was so much stronger than him. For the love of God, he had killed the Dobe years ago, and somehow he was still too strong to defeat. "No," said Naruto with a smirk on his face. "I will not. I have put you in your proper place, groveling at the foot of those stronger than you. You attacked me in anger because your ego is unaccepting of the fact that I am alone. Is unaccepting the fact that alone." Oh my gosh, I messed that up. Your ego is unaccepting of the fact alone that I am and have always been stronger. My bad for messing that up. I just didn't understand how to pronounce it. Anyways, I could kill you as easily as you did not too long ago, but you are not worth the effort. "You can't kill me," said Sasuke with a smirk on his face. "That was why you revived me in the first place. It's obvious that Kami favors me, loser." "Is that what you truly believe?" said Naruto as he finally turned around to face the idiot that his arm still held down on the ground. "That Kami favors you?" "It's obvious that he does, since you were forced to revive me. If that is what you believe, then allow me to shatter your belief. The first thing you must know is that there are no gods as you think. While there is a heaven as well as a hell, they are not run by gods. Kami is only a spirit, one who was the purest of spirits to ever exist. He ascended into the heavens and became a beacon to those with light in their souls to lead them to their proper resting place. He does not have the power that you think he does. Then why revive me at all, Dobe? Afraid that when I die, I will be granted even more power than you were when I killed you?" "No, Sasuke," asked Naruto, leaned down and used the sharp edge of his gauntlet to stab through one of his eyes. He relished in the sound of screams that followed. "I simply don't care to kill you, since it's not my job to do so. But make no mistake, your death will come for you sooner than you imagined." He then punched Sasuke in the back of the head hard, enough to knock him out. Tsunade at this point had finally come to her full senses as Naruto stood back up and wiped the blood and eyeball juice off his finger. She grew far angrier than she had ever been in her life, and charged forward with her fist pulled back. She punched Naruto square in the head in hopes that it would kill him. The power behind it blasted outwards in a shockwave that toppled the nearby buildings that the Kyuubi had not destroyed himself. Yet, her victorious smirk quickly turned into a look of shock and horror as she saw Naruto still standing there with a look of indifference. He had not moved a single centimeter from where she hit him, nor had he suffered any sort of damage from her attack. He simply grabbed her hand that she had punched him with and squeezed it hard. Tsunade screamed in pain as she felt her hand break and saw her bones were now sticking out of it. Your arrogance is so great," started Naruto as he let go of her hand, "that you honestly believe that you had the power to defeat death itself. What the hell are you?" I am of a race that has been long extinct, yet a bit of their power remained, and in my death I was gifted with that power that transformed me into what I am now. I am Nephilim. The blood of the angels as well as the demons flows through my body, and it is because of that fact alone that you cannot kill me. No mortal man or woman has the power to do so. Only a weapon forged within the heavens, or the depths of hell, have the power to hurt me. And unlucky for you, there are several of those weapons in the realm of man as we speak. And why is that unlucky for us? Said Tsunade, who was mentally preparing to send out all the shinobi she could after this was all over to find those weapons Naruto spoke of, so as to kill the brat again in a way that he will stay dead this time? Simple, said Naruto with a smirk, since he knew that Tsunade was hoping she can find them and use them against him. My bad. I willed every last one of them on my person. Tsunade took this bit of information hard, but before she can act on it, Kakashi appeared behind Naruto and attacked him with a right kiri to the back near the heart area so as to pierce through his heart. But just like with Tsunade, his attack did nothing to him, but made him smile, which, to be honest, made Kakashi feel very scared at the moment. Ah, said Naruto as he grabbed Kakashi's arm and twisted it to the point that his bones were audibly heard breaking. Kakashi screamed in pain as he did this, but Naruto didn't care in the slightest. If it isn't my old failure of a teacher, so like you to attack me from behind. But then again, you did the same thing several times in the past, in your attempt to kill me. You are nothing more than a monster, said Kakashi through strained teeth. I am not a monster, said Naruto as he shook his head. I am simply the force of balance that is needed to maintain orders on levels of resistance that you will never understand. Even while I was alive, I was the fabled child of prophecy, and if I was allowed to live long enough, I would have been the force of balance the world needed. My death did not change my purpose, only my person, as well as my outlook on things. Your father would be ashamed of you for what you are doing to this village. You were meant to be a weapon for our use to eliminate all the other villagers upon command, and then submit so that when a child was born from your seed, we will have another weapon for the future. And yet, I am controlled by no one, chuckled Naruto as he pointed to the Kyuubi himself. As he did, he made a mental command that Kyuubi heard to smash the hospital and the orphanage he grew up in, since it was true that it helped kids get fed and the like. In reality, while it was true that it helped kids get fed and the like, and in reality, it was probably funded by Danzo and his associates who took those kids and in the orphanage he grew up in, It was privately funded by Danzo and his associates who took those kids and turned them into root shinobi. And no one cared about an orphan child. Nobody cared about orphan children. That was why they were orphaned in the first place, since their parents died. Since when their parents died, they had no one else to care for them. And neither will he. Since he listens to me and me alone. And while you think that my father smiled from up high in the heavens all these years while you and the rest of the village made my life a literal hell to live, they were not. My father lies in the belly of the former Shinigami and has no idea what has been happening in the world since he hasn't been in there. And yet, that sort of fate was tame in comparison to my mother, since her spirit was stuck here in this village. She was tethered to me since she, as well as my father, placed a tiny bit of their souls into me to aid me if ever came to the case where the seal for the Kyuubi weakened in some sort. So killing you saved her soul, says Tsunade with a smug grin. So I was right to kill you. Do you really believe that? Said Naruto as he glared at Tsunade as he heard her say this. He quickly kicked Kakashi in both kneecaps so that they broke and that he would stay in one place for a bit since he was not done with him yet. Do you truly see yourself as some sort of avenger? Because in her eyes you are not. You are a traitor to all that the Uzumaki as well as the Senju clan stand for. She saw this village hurt me. Saw how you yourself treated me as you left me to rot to go gamble away your money. She cried consistently seeing that her son was in pain and that she was powerless to stop it. Your hand in the order of my death did not avenge her. It only solidified her hatred for you. While it is true that my death freed her soul to finally find her way to her eternal resting place, she will not thank you for it. Nor will you ever get the chance to try to explain it yourself to her, since with how dark your soul is, you're destined to be sent to the lowest depths of hell. Ironic that is the same place that you wanted me to go. Alright, I'm going to pause it here real quick. I am more than deserving of a rightful place in heaven. Who do you think you are to deny me of that? What gives you the right to judge me? Hello, pot, meet kettle. Have we met? Said Naruto, which Tsunade looked puzzled as he said that. I'm calling you a hypocrite, since you judged me to death. And by what right do you have to do that? I'm the Hokage, and you were one of the shinobi under my command. So if I ordered your execution, then it was within my right. Just as I am within my right to judge you, since I am the Shinigami. It is my job to judge the souls of the dead. That is my life purpose now, thanks to you, and the rest of the filth in this village. You just won't let me see Kuchina because you know she would agree with me. She would agree with my actions to have you killed. And would you be willing to bet on that? Asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. And what do you mean by that? Said Tsunade in a pissed off voice. But was shushed when Naruto pulled out his scythe and reappeared behind her with one of them curved around her neck, while the other one was pointed near her midsection. I mean, as exactly as I said. Would you, the woman the gambling community knows as the legendary sucker, be willing to bet your very life itself that she would agree with your views? Tsunade lost all color in her face at this point because not only were his weapons pointed at vital areas of her body, but somewhere in the back of her mind was a small bit of her brain that has always been shouting at her about the fact that her actions toward Naruto were pissing off her ancestors. But the rest of her mind and her anger towards the brat had always snuffed it out over the years. Now that her mind had all but gone blank, she could hear that bit of her brain as clear as day. She remained silent since she didn't know how to answer to that. I didn't think so, said Naruto as he pulled his weapons away from her body and clipped them back onto his belt. He then walked back towards Kakashi to finish what he had started, but stopped as Tsunade acted in impulse and stolen one of his guns from its holster. You will not win, said Tsunade with all the anger she could muster as she pointed it towards him. That won't work, Naruto said calmly. You said it yourself, that the weapons that you wield are capable of killing you, Tsunade said with a grin as he pulled the trigger. Yet her grin disappeared once she did, since the gun did not fire as she expected. What I meant was it won't work because you neither have the power nor the knowledge of how to use it, said Naruto as he held out his hand. The gun violently ripped from her hands, broke two of her fingers as it did, and flew back into his outstretched hand. He twirled it in his hand with a flourish before he holstered it once more. He then continued towards Kakashi, who saw him walking towards him and threw a kunai in defiance of this monster in front of him. The kunai bounced off him harmlessly, and when it did, Naruto grabbed him by the throat and lifted him up off the ground to the point that his feet were not on the ground. I am so very glad that you have seen fit to attack me, said Naruto as he grabbed his mask that was clipped on his belt in the rear. You see, even as I am, there are rules that I must follow to keep the balance of the world secured. The first of which is simply that I can't just kill because I want to do so, since it is my job to judge the souls of the world. It is not mine to kill who pissed me off. Yet there is an exception to that rule, and luckily, former, you have induced it. And what rule is that? Gargled Kakashi, since Naruto was keeping a tight grip on his throat. Those who challenge death itself, I can kill, said Naruto with a grin on his face that sent shivers down his spine. For to challenge death itself is suicide and execution. Now, I remember when we first met. Once I returned, returned as you see me now. You asked me about this mask that is in my hand, since you believed that it would grant you power. Or if not you, then the Uchiha, since you favored him too damn much. Allow me to grant your selfish request, said Naruto. Naruto then slammed the mask onto Kakashi's face hard. Kakashi felt as the power within the mask grabbed a hold of his soul and bound it tightly with the energy that was cold and devoid of all signs of life. Once attached, Naruto ripped the mask off of his face. By doing so, he ripped the soul of Kakashi out as well. He grabbed it with his hand and held it near his soul amulet. It was quickly sucked into it, and thus ended the life of Kakashi. While I'm within my right to kill you as well, said Naruto to Tsunade, who was in shock to see Kakashi's soul being ripped out so violently. As he donned his mask once more, I will allow you to live. And why the sudden change of heart, brat? Said Tsunade, since you couldn't really think of a reason for him to not to even attempt to kill her after all the crap he had been through. Because you were not worth it, said Naruto as he began to walk to where the Kyuubi was finishing up his rampage. But let me tell you this in parting. The entirety of both sides of your family has been told what you have done, and they are not pleased with your actions. You have committed the ultimate sin in their eyes, and they have pronounced you not only dead to them, but have renounced as a clan member. From either of them. You lie! Shouted Tsunade in shock that he would even say that. Look deep within the dark pit inside of what you call a soul, said Naruto as he once more continued to walk away. And you would know that what I said was true. Enjoy what little life you have, former Uzumaki Senju Tsunade. For soon, your death will come for you in the form of the person you loved most of all. And with that, Naruto was finally out of earshot. Center of village. Kyuubi stood in the center of the village, his orders now completed, as he waited for Naruto to return once more and sent him back to the realm he had been sealed within. Now, from an outside perspective, this may sound bad if you heard that someone or something was forced to go through this sort of treatment, but in reality, it was far from it. In the realm that he was sealed within, he was able to shape the world as he saw fit, and to be honest, all he wanted was peace and quiet, since all he had known throughout his life was war, death, hatred, and finally imprisonment. Now he had the chance to finally react as he had always wanted. He was fairly sure that his brother Shikaki was the same way, but their realms were different, so there was no way to tell. It would seem as the gods themselves have seen fit to send me what I desired, said a voice that brought Kyuubi out of his thoughts and made him look to see who had said such a stupid thing. And to his disgust, there was Danzo, along with his root shinobi and his two lackeys that made up the shinobi council. What surprised him, though, was the fact that Danzo had not only two arms, even though all his memories, even though all his memories he had of the man from Naruto showed he only had one, but he also saw that the extra one was a deformed looking one with multiple Sharingan implanted to it, along with another one in his eye, and I don't know what that means. Along with another one, and I don't know what that means. He spelled it wrong. Whatever he was trying to spell, They didn't finish it, so I don't know what to say. For years, I have wanted the Kyuubi Jinchuriki as a weapon to take over this village, said Danzo with a smile on his face, since he had waited so long for this moment. And yet, Hiruzen denied what was rightfully mine. And then the brat had to overstep his purpose, and we were forced to terminate him, so that he wouldn't be a threat to us in the future. I was angry, since doing that killed you as well, because of the seal on his body. But here you are, like a present wrapped up for me. Danzo then held out his arm and pulsed chakra through it to activate multiple Sharingan on his arm so as to control the beast. From this day on, you are my tool and will follow my commands. Now, I order you to sit. And to his glee, the Kyuubi listened to his order. Now, kneel before your master. Yet, the Kyuubi wouldn't do that. Danzo grew angry that the beast refused him and repeated his command several times. Yet, he didn't listen. That would not work on him, said Naruto as he appeared in front of the Kyuubi. The reason he sat down was not because of you, but because I told him to do so. So the village weapon returns to us even more powerful than before, said Danzo as he snapped his fingers. When he did, Naruto became surrounded by root shinobi that had lied in wait to spring this trap on their master's command. Now, I will do as I was denied the first time and turn you into one of my root, as well as find a way to take the power you have for myself, since you are undeserving of such a thing. The darkness within your soul is beyond description, said Naruto as he stood there unafraid of the root surrounding him, since none of them had the means to hurt him in any way, and had the means to hurt him in any sense of the word. It is because of that fact alone that I must personally terminate you to ensure that you don't cheat death once more. I don't think so. Men, subdue him. His root moved to do as he had ordered, but they all stopped when they felt a surge of power open up a rift between them and Naruto. Out of the rift walked out a woman whose hair was tied up in a braid and reached to her back. She had gauntlets on her hand that were sharp at the tip, as well as a sword handle at her hip. Her eyes were pale, with no pupil, and yet they could see that they were filled with an inhuman amount of fury. She wore what appeared to be as her old shinobi uniform, but if you were to look closer, you would see that it was made of a strange metal that was just as flexible as cloth, yet with the resistance of metal. This woman was none other than Hinata Hyuga, the newly made horseman of fury. It seems through the transformation. It seems as though the transformation went well, said Naruto as he saw her standing there. But before he could say any more, she had moved faster than he could track, which surprised him that was even possible. Grabbed the front of his shirt and slammed her lips onto his after ripping off his mask. She kissed him hard, with all the lust her body could muster at the moment, to which Naruto reciprocated. For about a minute they did this before they were forced to part lips. We are far from done with this, said Hinata with a smile on her face. On that we are in agreement, said Naruto as he put the mask back on his face. But I would seem as though you need a bit of exercise to test out your new powers. but it would seem as though you need a bit of exercise to test out your new powers, I think they meant to say. As luck would have it, there's a group of volunteers here just to do that. So you handle the root shinobi, while I handle Danzo himself. Sounds good to me, said Hinata as she pulled out the blade handle from her side. As she did, the rest of the weapon appeared in a red glow. The root once more attacked as they were ordered. She attacked their forces head-on with the grace of a ballerina dancer, yet with the tenacity of a seasoned veteran. She slewed all who opposed her with her whip blade in various fashions that left the members of Root with missing limbs and severed bodies. While all this was happening, Naruto simply walked towards Danzo casually, while he whistled a very unnerving tune. Danzo backed away from him as he used the power of the Sharingan to try to control him. But it didn't work, since not only was his will too strong to be controlled, one does not simply control death like that. When he saw that Naruto was immune to his Sharingan, he tried to use the Mokuton power of his arm to send wave after wave of wooden tendrils to subdue him. Yet, even that failed, since all Naruto had to do was unclip his slice and cut down, and use them to cut the tendrils down without missing a step. His actions at flawlessly defending against his attacks unnerved Danzo greatly. In a move of utter desperation, he threw Koharu and Homaru at him as he attempted to run for his life, so as to regroup and form a plan to subdue the boy into a weapon in the future. They landed at Naruto's feet and immediately began to beg for his mercy. They mentioned how it was all Danzo's fault, and they never saw him as a monster or a weapon. Naruto knew that this was all bullcrap, but he still walked past them to their relief. Naruto made sure to cut that relief short as he threw his scythe behind him. They flew through the air and decapitated both of the old fossils before they returned to his hands like a boomerang. Danzo was trying to run, but in his old age, that made it hard for him since he didn't have his cane to support him. He didn't get very far though, since the Kyuubi walked to where he was running to and laid down in the road. Danzo was trapped, since there was buildings on both sides of him, and the only way to go now was the way he had came from. But that was out of the question, since that would just lead him back to the one who he was trying to run away from. Well, would you look at the situation you are in now, said Naruto as he stood several yards away from Danzo, effectively blocking the only escape route he had. You have gotten yourself cornered without so much as a single person left to throw away so that you could live but a few seconds longer. You see, the problem with that sort of mentality is that you eventually run out of pawns. And then what do you do when that happens? I would not be lectured by a brat like you, said Danzo in defiance. I am your superior, and as such, I order you to stand down. See, this is why I must deal with you personally, said Naruto as he pointed at him. Your soul is one of the darkest to exist throughout history. While there are many that are darkened by their actions, yours is unique in the fact that the darkness in your soul is so potent that it can actually corrupt the very soul of others. That is preposterous. Who are you trying to fool, Danzo? Said Naruto as he shook his head. For I see your soul as clear as day. You have taken men, women, children throughout the elemental countries and forced them into your root shinobi. You killed their families and loved ones just so you would have more soldiers. If that act alone wasn't bad enough, you took away everything from them. Their will, their individuality, their minds, And not last but least, their very emotions, to make them into these hollow husks that are shells of what they once were. Emotions make a person weak, and so I stamped them out, said Danzo in defense of his tactics. I am above everyone, even the supposed Shinigami that you call yourself. And yet you retain your emotions, said Naruto as he took out both his scythes and slammed them together, doing so transformed them into a bigger one. So that makes you a hypocrite as well as a blight upon the world of the living. And as for your statement about being above me, Naruto then quickly activated his Reaper form and slashed at Danzo in a downward arc. Danzo was not expecting something like this and had not time to dodge the attack in any way. So his soul was ripped out from his body. And as it was, his body was slammed into the ground from the force of the swing itself. Naruto grabbed the whole of Danzo's soul, which while the normal souls of the world was bluish, his was jet black. See, now that you will forever kill before your death, as do all who live, said Naruto as he forced the man to see his now dead body on the ground. Naruto then summoned dust, and his flock of ravens to swarm the body and tear it apart. They did so and flew away with the pieces. They had to find a place to properly dispose of the body parts. Naruto then held out a flask he had gotten for this very moment and placed Danzo's soul in it. Within it, it had a seal on it to keep the contents within contained, so there was no chance to escape. With this task for the Kyuubi finished, he sent him away to his own realm. Naruto heard the cries of spirits who were waiting to be judged and cross over into the heavens that they believed they were worthy of. But Naruto knew better than them on the subject. He held out his soul amulet and felt as the souls of the recently slain get sucked into it. Once the process was done, he smiled since he had enough souls to complete his plan. But he still needed to find strife and war. As if on cue, Hinata showed up and kissed him again. So are we done here? Asked Hinata, since she wanted to leave this place behind and never look back again. We are, said Naruto as he summoned up despair and mounted him. He held out his hand to pull up Hinata, but before she grabbed it, she heard a voice shouting at her from behind. Hinata Hyuga! Get away from that monster! Hinata scowled as she heard that being said, and even more so since she easily recognized the voice. It was her old sensei, Kurenai, who for the past several years had been telling her to stop her feelings she had for Naruto. Hell, she all but wanted she all but wanted her to marry Sasuke and impregnate and get pregnant, I guess that's what they meant to say, with his child, so that she would just forget him. What do you want, woman? Growled Hinata with fury in her voice. Because if you don't mind, I have 3 years of pent-up sexual frustration, and the man I love is here to satisfy them. So if you don't mind, I will be leaving now. Naruto smirked as she said this, since he had a feeling that was where this was going. He didn't just want to say, anything. It's a lot of spelling mistakes that's kind of messing me up, but that's what it says. "I'm your sensei, and you will listen to me," said Kurenai in anger that Hinata was talking back to her. "You have so much potential as a kunoichi, Hinata, so much more than anyone else from your age group or near it. And you're just gonna throw it away? And for what? Just to be the mother of his child? To be his devoted, loving housewife? Yep, you deserve better than that. It won't make you think I would have demeaned Hinata in such a way as to keep her from reaching such potential. I always knew Hinata was strong for as long as I have known her. I believed in her when no one else did. Not even you believed in her. Not even you believed in her. For Kami's sake, her clan put Hinata down for years, yet you did nothing against it. A clan matter, people called it. You hide behind your technicalities and moral obligations to not affair in family affairs. But we both know Hinata should have never suffered at the hand of her clan. Even after my death years ago, you still prefer that your foremost student lived under the thumb of a clan that oppressed her over me. Me! You tried to squash the love she had for me by forcing her to marry Sasuke, a man who didn't love her in any sense of the word, and was only marrying her to get back at me in some fashion," said Naruto while Kurenai's hatred for him was wavering for only a second before it returned. "He was far more deserving of her than you will ever be," she said with a glare. "More deserving," said Hinata as her hair began to glow red. That showed her levels of fury were rising. "Naruto loved me with all his heart. And even when he was killed for bringing that traitor back to the village, he still made it back to the realm of the living and saved me because of his love for me. Sasuke killed me. He literally killed me in front of a live audience just because he wanted to see Naruto suffer. How is someone like that more deserving of my love than a man who wouldn't even let death itself stop him from returning to the love of his life? Because he is the Kyuubi," shouted Kurenai, who was pissed that Hinata was not seeing things like her and the rest of the village had for years. "And yet the fact that the Kyuubi himself attacked the village and I'm still alive and standing here is not a clear sign that I am not the beast itself?" asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. It only proves it more than ever that you two are of the same thing." It was at this point that Hinata had enough of this pointless argument, since Kurenai wasn't going to change her views since she was so damn stubborn. Even when the evidence of her being wrong was presented, she refused to believe it. So Hinata quickly swiped downwards twice with her whip blade. Doing so, cut Kurenai's arms off at the shoulder. She screamed in pain, of course, since it was to be expected in such an event, and then threw the handle at her open mouth. The sword entered as she screamed, but instead of it piercing out the back of her head, the blade bent and went down her throat and punctured through her stomach and cut through multiple organs. Hinata then held out her hand to summon her sword back, and as it returned to her hand, the blade dragged her intestines out of her mouth as it retracted. Once the blade was in her hand, she used her magic to heat up the blade to cause the intestines to light a flame and burned her former sensei's now deceased body. Naruto saw as she finished up and once more held out his hand to pull her onto the horse. And once on it, they made their way towards their newest destination. For while Naruto had all the souls he needed, the horseman was still incomplete. Sorry for a lot of mistakes, and sorry for the chapter being shorter. The chapter was just shorter than usual, and there was a lot of spelling mistakes that I didn't understand. So yeah, but that's the end of this episode. See you guys later on. Bye.